And hey, everybody, welcome into the Big Chief Show on Chief Studios. It's your boy Freddie D. Every Wednesday, the Big Chief Show, and of course, wouldn't be right if we didn't introduce the man, the myth, the legend, the one, the only, live on location. All right. You know what? Look, we're all about family here on the Big Chief Show.
Yep.
Shout out to look, we've heard about baby Babbo, we've heard about Mama Babbo, now we've got brother Babbo.
That's right.
So the Babbo family,
In the A-Town, baby. In the A-Town, say hey.
Shout out to the okay, so you're just outside of Austin, correct? Which a lot of folks don't realize really is only like 45 minutes outside of San Antonio.
Really, in drive time, it's like an hour and a half. But where I'm at, Dripping Springs, it's a little bit more than an hour. Dripping Springs is a kind of it was a sleepy community.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. I mean, it's getting to a point where you really can't tell a difference between San Antonio and Bernie, and then it just all melds into Dripping, and then Wimberley, and now next thing you know, you're in Austin. Hey, man, Texas is one of the largest growing states, fastest growing states in the nation. And you can see why, because it's a hill country. It's beautiful. It's got, look, it doesn't have Northern California wine, but it's getting better. They got a bunch of whiskey. And, and they've got the fifth ranked team in the nation, the UT Longhorns.
And hot women. I mean, let's not forget. Okay.
And they got a great music scene. Austin, I think it's called Austin City Lights. You had a lot of famous people perform there every year. Steve Martin performs out there every year. So it's great. Great.
Did you say Dean Martin performs out there?
Steve Martin.
Okay.
Not Dean Martin. No, man.
Dean
Martin may have been a bouncer, but no, not out here.
Are you sure you're talking like a tribute band or something like that? All right, so we're ready to rock and roll this thing.
Do this.
What's that?
Let's do this, man.
It's a day away from week 4. That's the beauty of doing the show on a Wednesday, is that we get to kind of recap everything that went down in week 3 and get you excited. And of course, it's the NFL, so you don't really have to get people excited per se, unless you're a Jets fan. Maybe that's right now, and they're looking down the barrel of a 9.5-point spread right now, and we'll get to that here in just a few. But big game tomorrow. The Detroit Lions at the Green Bay Packers, and of course, the Packers were gifted a victory on Sunday. Of course, that New Orleans Saints game, down 17-0 with about 11 minutes left to go. They come back, 18-point rally for the Green Bay Packers. And look, shout out to our boy, Mr. Love. He continues to get better each week. And I think, look, we're realizing now that the Bears are awful. Okay. I mean, I think we can all say that in unison. Yes, right. They had a boatload of problems last week. We had our boy Joey Christopoulos on. Come to find out, allegedly, he's not the creep that we thought he was. Okay, a lot of, God bless the internet. I mean, it can, what do they say? It takes a lifetime to build a reputation and 30 seconds to ruin it.
Lose it. Yeah.
And so our boy, Alan Williams, it was rumored that his house had been raided, the feds had showed up, that he allegedly had kiddie porn on his computer. I mean, come on, man. I mean, look, there's one thing. I mean, look, if you're a womanizer, I mean, we kind of like, that sucks. If you beat women, we're kind of like, well, that's not cool. But kiddie porn takes you to a whole other level where it's
you cross the line and then you start grabbing ankles for a bunch of gorillas in state penitentiary.
Well, and then taking a shank usually right after that. So, you are persona non grata when it comes to child pornography, and rightfully so. That being said, come to find out that wasn't the case, and that it was something highly inappropriate, and that's what ended up. I'm guessing it was an Ime Udoka situation, is my guess. I'm wondering if he was banging somebody inside the building.
Yeah. And so, for good measure, whoever was the victim probably stole $100,000 worth of equipment.
Somebody did. Hey, look, somebody did something they weren't supposed to do. I wonder if Alan Williams was like, you know what? I see the writing on the wall. This team sucks. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tell him myself.
Yeah,
I want out of here. Who knows? We'll never know. And I'm sure that the news will creep out at some point. So that was the kind of the scuttlebutt in the news. And of course, that dwarfed the story that had come out earlier that day, where Justin Fields had pretty much thrown the entire coaching staff under the bus. And after watching him again on Sunday against the Kansas City Chiefs, look, I don't know if look, we're hearing different things about, okay, he's trying to, and it depends on what spin you want to take, Babo. But it's like, okay, one guy's saying, well, if you can't stay in the pocket, this ain't gonna work. Another guy's writing an article saying, well, this is him reaching out to the coaching staff saying, look, coach me a different way. I need to learn somehow, the way you're coaching me isn't working. I kind of fall in the, look, you've been in the NFL for going on 3 years right now, okay? And again, I haven't been in a locker room. I would defer to our friend Henry Thomas in situations like this. But I get, my feeling is you had Luke Getsy last year. Yes, he gave you things that worked out for your style of play and for the Bears in that vein. And yet they wanted to make him and Joey Christopoulos made a great point of this last week. They're basically following the exact same script with Justin Fields that they did with Mitchell Trubisky, and that they did stuff that he liked and was easy for him the first couple of years, and they realized, okay, if you're going to take this next step, then we got to put more on you. And when they tried putting more on him, guess what? It didn't work. And that's kind of what's going on right now with Justin Fields, where they're saying, okay, look, yes, we know you like running the ball, and yes, that's all well and good, but you're getting the shit beat out of you. It doesn't help your wide receivers. It doesn't help this offense. And if we're going to take that next step, you're going to have to learn how to throw from the pocket, man. And as we've seen, Mike Babo, and we saw this again on Sunday.
It's not, but that's not him, Freddie. But Freddie, I hate to interrupt you, but that's not him. At OSU, he was an RPO kind of guy. He was a run-first type of quarterback. He was a dynamic. He would see things, and then he would just make up stuff as it goes along. That's great in college. That's great in the Big Ten, where they don't play defense. But you can't do that in the pros, and as bad as, and I'm going to switch gears in a little bit on your Freddie, as bad as the offense has looked, and their offensive line is terrible. Alex Leatherwood couldn't make the fucking offensive line, and he was a first-round draft pick out of Alabama simply just 2 years ago. But as bad as their offense has looked, Fred, you look at it, their defense is just as bad, if not worse. And they haven't invested anything in their draft capital at all. I actually went back to 2016. And if you go to the first 3 rounds of their draft since 2016, each year, they've drafted 3 guys in the first 3 rounds, 2 of them this year, right? And you have to go all the way back to 2018, when they drafted Roquan Smith in the first round out of Georgia. He's no longer on the team. And now he's in Baltimore, right? And they have not invested in their front 7 in a long ass time, and it's showing. I mean, look, I get it. They faced a fitting, and Mahomes went off, and of course Travis Kelce was back, his first game back, or first real game back, and then and that's hard, especially playing at Arrowhead Stadium.
That was his second game back.
That was his second game back, but that was his first touchdown, right? I think.
But he's looking.
He looked like his old self. My point is that defense was Swiss cheese, and they've got to give him they've got to give him some weapons. Darnell Mooney's the only one. Khalil Herbert's been an absolute bust. I know, because he's on my fantasy team.
Yeah, you and me both.
He's been absolute trash, but his offensive line isn't giving him time. It reminds me of what I was watching when I was watching poor Jay Cutler get the crap beat out of him when he was the coach of the Bears, right? And so they're facing another 0-3 team in Denver. I've got hope for Denver. I don't think I got any hope for the Bears. Certainly not now, because not only is there a mess on the field, but there's a lot of strife in the locker room. They can't even keep, like I said, they can't even keep their equipment, locked up.
We got our first question of the show. Is Bitter Mike still bitter about Twitter changing to X?
Hey, I'm hard to change. I'm old school. When I read the Wall Street Journal, it say Twitter, now called X. So, I'm getting there. Michael, I'll warm up to it. But
you're going to have to. You're going to have to. It's not going anywhere. That's for sure. It's not going anywhere. We'll say this about the Bears. Of course, we're going to mention them one more time and then be done. We've given them far, far more attention than necessary. But I'm with you on the Khalil Herbert thing. He's ruined me as well. And it's one of those deals where I just really thought Justin Fields was going to take that next step. I thought he was going to have kind of a Jalen Hurts-like progression as far as his ability and what he's been able to do. But it just seems like, the thing about the Eagles is that They've got a much better look. Nick Sirianni,
They have a good offensive line, that's for sure. They don't run the ball very well.
They don't have. Look, the Eagles. Howie Roseman has done a masterful job of drafting. That's number one. Which the Bears are, like you mentioned already, are a dumpster fire. They did nothing. They didn't do much to help him out on the as far as the offensive line was concerned. They gave him some pieces, but again, it just there's a disconnect there. You can see it for a team that there was some hype and there was some. Hell, we said it on this show. Look, and I don't know how you're feeling about your Pittsburgh Steelers prediction. All right, after you had them as a possible Super Bowl contender going into the year, and again,
pretty good right
now. Look, Kenny Two Glove Pickett. Look, I don't. Okay, there's two things I don't like in my quarterback. One, I don't like him wearing a wedding ring. Number one. That's first.
We've established that fact.
We've established that, right? And number two, shout out to our boy Jumbo Jane as well. Let's go Chiefs. Or shout out to our gal Jumbo Jane. Let's go Chiefs. But I can't trust a quarterback who wears gloves. It's one thing to wear a glove on your non-throwing hand. It's another to wear it on your throwing hand
in September.
In September, Mike. I mean, this game wasn't in Antarctica. This game was in a dome, a temperature-controlled dome in Las Vegas, which, by the way, and you've said this time and time again, all right, while it's great, you know what happens when you've got a really crappy football team? It sounds like you're playing
on the road everywhere.
Exactly. When you have a crappy football team in a really nice stadium,
in a destination city.
Because look, man, there were times during that game Sunday night, and you and I were texting back and forth. There were times Sunday night where it was so loud for the Raiders, or when the Steelers did something wrong or got penalized in the booing, if you didn't know any better, you would have thought the Pittsburgh Steelers were playing at home Sunday night.
The Raiders had to actually have to go to a silent snap count twice.
In your own damn stadium.
In their home damn stadium. And again, we've gone over this ad nauseum. It's a destination city. Their name sponsor is Allegiant Airlines. If you go on AllegiantAir.com, and if you are a Chiefs fan or you're a Steelers fan or if you're a Broncos fan, you can get onto their website and you can get, for a low price, you can get airfare to and from to Vegas. You can get a hotel. You can get a ticket to the game with all of your fellow Chiefs, Broncos, or Steelers fans. And next thing you know, it's just like another home game. And especially for those fans who are shut out from their like Green Bay. I think their next home game, the Raiders is going to be against Green Bay. And guess what? Their fans, they travel very, very well. So it's going to be a lot of green and gold there too. And I'm sorry, there are a lot of fans that are absolutely disillusioned. And if you're paying $500 a ticket, for a lousy football team, for an owner that would rather go to his Las Vegas Aces basketball WNBA team. By
the way, John Babbo says he's protecting the hands for a career after football as a hand model. So if that's the case, he also said Raider fans are not decent people.
No, we're passionate. We're passionate. He just doesn't know. Don't pay attention to him.
It's funny though, it's funny he says that though, because I sent you, and if you were more proficient on Instagram, which that's going to be our goal for 2020.
Yeah, that's my New Year's resolution.
Is to get you more proficient on Instagram. But there was a meme or a reel of Leslie Nielsen walking through all this stuff going on outside, people getting robbed, explosions going off, and he said he felt like he was at a Los Angeles Raiders home game.
I saw that. Yes, I saw your retweet. Thank you very much. Yeah, a bunch of Raiders and thugs. It felt like I was at a Los Angeles Raiders home game. Yes,
that's it. That's exactly what it felt like. Real quick, the only game, and look, I'm just going to say this about the Kansas City Chiefs game, and beating up on the Bears in Week 3. Look, it was a get-right game. You felt good about it. My only downside, and there wasn't much. I mean, look, the defense played really well, as they should have against a really bad football. Hold on one second. Okay, Mike's back. All right, here we go.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I lost
Right,
you.
okay. We're good. Yeah, I lost you too for a second. Couple things that jumped out at me. Number one, Chris Jones only played 16 snaps on Sunday. Kind of a weird deal there. Not sure exactly what the situation was as to why he only played 16 snaps.
Well, Fred, I mean, come on, this game is over at halftime. I mean, why?
No, it was.
Why risk injury for a guy who's still rusty if you were just absolutely beating the brakes off of a?
Well, if you're him, because but think about it. If you're him, you look. You've already missed one game. All right. You have all your this new deal that you signed is very incentive laden, especially when it comes to the sack side of things. And, when you're playing a Ole type offensive line like the Chicago Bears and, your money's predicated on getting sacks and getting after the quarterback. And, oh, by the way, if he makes an all-pro team or what have you, he gets incentives for that too. So I would just think that he would want to play a few more snaps. And like you said, they didn't run a lot of offense. I think for the game, they only had like 45 or 42 snaps for the entire game. So you're right. I mean, look, from that standpoint, I can totally get it. And again,
it's playing a long game right now. It's a long season. He's going to get his reps, but let's just like.
No, Andy called the dogs off after 41-0, right?
Yeah, and they pulled Mahomes in the third quarter, right? I don't even think.
It was, dude. I think it was like 11 minutes left or something like that when he called when they came back out again. I think it was like 6 minutes left or whatever it was, and we saw our boy Blaine Gabbert. But and I think there was kind of like blood in the water from an NFL perspective because we'd already seen the Dolphins put up a 70 burger on the Denver Broncos. And so, when the Chiefs go and rattle off 41 straight, you're thinking, okay, we're about to see our second, ridiculous blowout of the day. But, Andy Reid's.
And keep in mind, Mahomes tweaked his ankle too in the first half. And so they didn't want to take
it. He did. It was, and he talked about it I heard him talk about it on Monday. He said it was more that because it had happened, it was the same ankle that he hurt in the playoffs last year that he kind of did a little bit of a double take, but he said he was fine, which, that's what you're going to hear from 15.
That's fine, but you don't need to be taking a chances against in a
You don't. And we're starting to find out that, the Miami Dolphins, that there might have been some personal animus, if you will, from one Mr. Mike McDaniel. I didn't realize he was so bent out of shape or irritated by the fact that he was not interviewed last year for the coaching vacancy with the Denver Broncos, which I knew he was from that area. And then, of course, now we're seeing memes and reels and what have you about,
this is only his third year in Miami, and he's got,
this is his second year in Miami.
This is second year. Okay. Even more reason why not to get a bent out of shape. You got Tua Tagovailoa. You got the fastest person on the planet.
But no. But think about it this way. It'd be kind of like the equivalent of saying, hey, if Mike Babbo didn't get, if you were a coach and you were available and the Raiders didn't at least bring you in for an interview.
But isn't he already the head coach of the Miami Dolphins at the time?
No, he what? Remember, don't forget.
Oh, this was before they hired Sean Payton.
This was before they hired Nathaniel Hackett.
Oh, okay. Well,
this was before they hired.
You're in a win-win situation here. You got one of the best quarterbacks. You got one of the most high-powered offenses in football. You've got an up-and-coming defense. I mean, come on. And the AFC East is wide the hell open right now.
No, it is. But
Mac Jones is a mess. Yes, you got to go through Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, but come on. I mean,
there's something to be said, though, about sticking to somebody who didn't believe in you.
Yeah, sure. But then they try to play it off. So, we took our foot off the gas. We don't want to insult anybody. Come on, you fucking.
The whole nonsense about
we didn't get a field goal.
You'd already put up fucking 70 points. Stop with the whole let's be classy. I tell you what, I hate the internet. I'm really starting to hate the internet. You know what? The people on it just get stupider and stupider each day. All right, so you had the 70 burger from the Dolphins, and of course, obviously, for all you fantasy fucking nerds out there, and I usually like to throw myself in that group.
Like 8 million.
I'll tell you what, I'm ready to go Denver Bronco on my own fantasy team. I'm sick of it already. The Commanders came back to earth. Sam Howell sucks. Let's just call it what it is. Here's what I don't get. And I talked about this last week with my boy Josh Beard, and I told him, and he and I disagreed on this. I said, are we sure Sam Howell's that much better than Taylor Heineke? He's like, oh, yeah, he does more things. Does he know? Because after what I saw last night and what I've seen so far through 3 games, I'm sorry, but Sam Howell's not that big of an upgrade over Tyler Heineke. How about some get right for the Buffalo Bills, though? Huh?
Yeah.
For
well, they got right in week 2 against the Raiders, right? I mean, it was a 34-7, and it wasn't even that close. So
that always helps.
That always helps. I mean, the Raiders make everything right for everybody these days. And of course, the Los Angeles Chargers will find that out this weekend when they host the Raiders, which will which will be probably the first time where the Raiders feel like it's a home game because they own Los Angeles and San Diego. I'm sorry. There'll be a lot of silver and black out there because for one thing, it's a 1-hour flight.
Yeah.
And really, are there really any Charger fans out there? Really? No. Not nearly as many.
Tell you what, if there are one, have them call into the show or just check us out. Give us a follow. All right. I mean that's we do that. I don't know. That's a great question. How about Deshaun? He finally looked good.
I'll tell you what. I mean, they didn't have much of a running game. I think. No. What was his name? Pierre Strong was their leading ball carrier with 27 yards and 11 carries. But Deshaun was great. He was 27 of 33 with 289 yards, 2 touchdowns. More importantly, no picks. I think only 2 sacks.
He was night and day. He was night and day. And I'm obviously, I'm on the Deshaun Watson bandwagon.
There you are.
Look, my man got a raw deal, pun intended. Let's see what else.
But you know what? We'll revisit this later. But I'll tell you what was even more impressive than the Cleveland offense. Their defense, Freddie, is real.
Look,
absolutely real.
Jim Schwartz, I don't know that I'd want him coaching my football team as a head coach, but when it comes to defenses, Jim Schwartz is as good as it gets. That dude is a monster when it comes to
have you seen their numbers? Through 3 games, 491 yards of total offense. That's less than 165 a game.
Yeah.
21 first downs. That's only 7 a game. 1 touchdown. It's a passing touchdown.
Think about it, man. I mean, look.
That's it. That's it.
You beat up on the Bengals in week 1, and of course we all know that our boy Joe's dealing with a bum calf.
Himself, yep.
The Steelers are terrible. And that's a game they should have won. They should have beat.
Except Deshaun had a bad. I mean, he was responsible for 14 points.
No, Deshaun had, and let me tell you something. For him to bounce back as poor, and I don't know that he could have looked much worse. From a professional standpoint, that game against the Pittsburgh Steelers was as bad a game as I think I've ever seen him play. Sure. And for him to bounce back the way he did against the Tennessee Titans, which that's a whole other issue right there. Tennessee's just fire and a half.
We're talking about a guy in Derrick Henry that scored. I mean, he rushed for over 2,000 yards 2 years ago, I think it was. He rushed, I believe, for 12 yards. Or 20 yards, but again, I think credit to that defense, that Jim Schwartz defense. And Myles Garrett is a man possessed right now. He is he's really vying for AFC Defensive Player of the Year. He's got, granted it's only 3 weeks, but good God, he's got 2 guys following him when he's roaming the front 7. It's just insane. I've never seen anything like that. So.
He's been a man among boys. Last thing, 2 games real quick, and then we'll move on to what we're looking forward to in week 4. Real quick, the Colts, big win against the Ravens. I would argue they look better with Gardner Minshew at the quarterback spot than they do with Anthony Richardson. Now, that being said, I'm not saying that you shouldn't play Anthony Richardson, but I think there could be – that's the one situation where you could do a 2-quarterback and I get it when you put Anthony Richardson in, maybe you're going to know because it's a little bit gimmicky, but there's just something about that offense for them to go and win – at Baltimore on the road. That defense played well. I mean, we forget that defense is still pretty good from a few years
ago. They were aided. They were driving. Baltimore was driving in that overtime, and they were aided by the refs on a non-call on what was clearly pass interference.
Against the Zay Flowers play.
Yeah, I mean that was so obvious.
Yeah, but I thought that
and the ref was right on top of the play, and he just ate the flag. And it's like, look, I know that we don't want to get the refs to decide the games, but that was so egregious. But yeah, kudos to Indianapolis. They hung in.
I don't think it was as egregious as it looked. I felt like because it was such a bang play, but we get the hindsight of it being played over time and time again. I do think they need to make pass interference challengeable, though.
Well, they did for 1 year, right? And it was just absolute shit show. And they said this is just, first of all, it was adding way too much time to the game.
Yeah.
And it was way too controversial because pass interference is so subjective. From one play to the next, from one play to the next. I mean, it is just and they can't get it standard. I mean, look, I'm going to give you a baseball analogy. Eventually, you're going to get an automatic strike zone, and it's already in the minor leagues. And it's really simple. If it's in the box, it's a strike. If it's out, it's not. Pass interference, completely different story. And so you're going to get.
No, you're right about that. There is
a lot of hue and cry from the coaches. I think. The competition committee, which was made up of like 3 head coaches, and then 3 NFL executives, all 3 head coaches at the time, they said, get rid of it. We hate it because this is just, there's no cut and dry way to determine what's pass interference. So
no, you're not. And I do remember when it was a little bit of a shit show. There's got to be a way for them to still, I mean, look, because the thing is this, if we at home know, look, it takes about a minute to tell if it's a pass interference. Not even really that long.
It's like pornography. I know it when I see it, right?
Well, you can say that again. Last but certainly not least, how about these Houston Texans? I got to give a shout out to C.J. Stroud.
Yeah.
And the Houston Texans organization. All my Houston Texan fans out there, you guys know who you are. This is a franchise that has been beaten up. And look, I said last week on ESPN 97.5 after, and I and you know me, I can be a prisoner of the moment. But after dadgummit, Derek Stingley gets hurt. He's going to be out. He's going to be on the shelf for 6 to 8 weeks. Hurts his hamstring. This guy's been oft injured. So that being said, I went on air that day and said, you know what, Nick Caserio, fire him. Now that being said, we look at what's going on. All right. You're trending in the right direction with this Houston Texan football team. You competed in week 1. You got your doors blown off in week 2 against the Colts, even though you still battled in the second half. And then you just put it completely on the Jacksonville Jaguars in week 3. And then you got a Pittsburgh Steelers team on Sunday that, let's call it what it is. You can beat them. You can beat the Pittsburgh Steelers.
They have no run game whatsoever. Deontay Johnson's out. They've got Freiermuth, right? I think that he's their top target, as strange as it is. And Kenny Pickett is as inconsistent and inaccurate as I've seen in the NFL. I mean, and look, DeMeco Ryans has got those guys playing hard. I mean, this is his first year as a head coach. You got a rookie quarterback in C.J. Stroud. You got to have some patience, okay? And this is the growing pains that they're going to go through. But you're right. They're eminently beatable. And the Texans fans, they can be loud. I know that they can party in the tailgate, but they can absolutely be loud for sure. So, yeah, you're right. This is an absolutely winnable game. And if they somehow pull a rabbit out of their hat, this will go a long way towards establishing this program towards respectability again. Because the AFC South is wide open as ever, really.
No, it is, and like I said, I'm still kind of torn on our boy Nick Caserio. The Texans are a 3-point favorite going in, or excuse me, a 3-point dog on Sunday, but that's okay. I think that has much to do with just kind of the history of the program as much as anything else. But at +3, you could argue it's almost kind of a push in a way. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I think it's going to be a really good game when it all comes down to it. But yeah, C.J. Stroud looked really good. When it comes to the Jaguars, and we'll say this and move on to week 4, it's just there's something about this Jacksonville team that just still doesn't look right from how last season ended. They end on a high note. They come back. They beat the Chargers. They were respectable against the Chiefs in the divisional round. And, look, they looked like dog poo against the Colts. Still won that game, but then they blew their chances against Kansas City, and then just got absolutely dog walked by the Houston Texans. And they've got a Falcon team coming up on Sunday that, let's call it what it is. That's a game they should win. All right, that's a game they should win. I'll be real curious to see how that shapes up. The defense has been suspect. You and I are both on the should we stay or should we go on Trevor Lawrence, and I'm going to go ahead and stay put for now. But I'll tell you what, 2 or 3 more weeks of this bullshit, and I'm punting on one
Their only option is C.J. Beathard, and you know he's not better than Trevor Lawrence. I mean,
I'm not saying that you're going to get rid of him. I'm not saying you're going to bench him.
A little bit of a slow start, and their run game is.
I'm talking about for fantasy purposes.
What's that, sir?
No, I'm talking
for fantasy purposes. Yeah, I'm ready.
You're not benching him.
Yeah, I'm not benching him. No, I mean, but I'm gonna look. It's just week 4, so I'm pumping the brakes yet. I'm not hitting the panic button just yet, but still, Calvin Ridley's finally off of his gambling issues. And whatever his personal issues are. He's got to get going. Christian Kirk's got to get going. They just don't have that speed burner. They don't have that deep threat. They don't have that one guy that says you cannot let him beat you. I mean, with the Chiefs, it's Travis Kelce. With the Dolphins, it's Tyreek Hill. And they don't have that guy. And like you mentioned, their defense is terrible.
But here's the thing, though. You've got guys. Look, you've got you've got Kirk, who again played well 2 weeks ago. You got Evan Ingram, who's finally starting to come into his own a little bit. And I'll give Calvin Ridley the benefit of the doubt. I mean, this is a guy that's missed a year and a half of football, right? Sure. He left 2 years ago because of personal issues, like you said. Get his mental health right. Last year, he got suspended for the entire season for betting on not even his own games, but just betting. And so, I think he's still kind of knocking some rust off. I mean, we're only week 3 for the most part. So, again, Doug Peterson has been there, done that. So, like you said, I'm not going to punt on them just yet. But my patience is waning with the Jacksonville Jaguars in a division that is wide open. I mean, that's theirs for the taking. So, all right, your 3 games as we look into week 4. What are the 3 games that Mike Babbo has his eyes on?
Well, the first 2 games are what we call the Scrub Bowl, the battle of the unwinnables. The first one is we talked about early, Denver at Chicago. Chicago is a 3-point underdog at home. And like I said, the defense is just terrible. They haven't invested in their draft capital. Like I said, I know that Denver gave up 70 points, but I still think that they have a lot of weapons and they got a lot of talent, whereas Chicago doesn't have any weapons, talent, or hope. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take Denver. I'm going to lay the 3 points, and I think they're going to cover the spread. And Denver is going to beat Chicago. The second game is this also a game of winless teams. Minnesota, hard luck, 0-3. They should have somehow they let the Chargers beat them because they can't. And I'm sorry, I'm going to get off on a tangent here, but you've got a second-year head coach in Kevin O'Connell and a veteran quarterback in Kirk Cousins that can't get their shit straight. They let 23 seconds elapse from the clock before they get so desperate, and then Kirk Cousins throws an interception near the end zone to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. When you fucking Chargers of Brandon Staley went for it on 4th and 2 inside their 20. And they didn't convert. And then he said, well, I had faith in my defense. No. I mean, that's just inside your 20. You're crazy. But anyway, so I think Minnesota's a hard luck 0-3. I think they're better than the record says they are. Whereas Carolina, we don't know if Bryce Young is going to be back. I don't think
they said he's out. They said he's out. Okay. Well, and Carolina is a 3.5-point dog. These are 2 defenses that can't stop anybody, particularly through the air. I got more confidence in the vet Kirk Cousins. I think they're going to break out. This is really going to be a rough thing because at the end of Sunday, 2 teams are going to be 0-4. Mm-hmm. And that's rough. That's when you start really questioning, the brass really starts questioning, do we need to make a change? Do we need to make a quarterback change? And, of course, the fans are going to call for, heads. My third game is the one we kind of touched on already. Baltimore at Cleveland. 2 2-1 teams in the division going at it. Cleveland is a 3-point favorite. I love their defense. I fucking love their defense. Yeah. Myles Garrett, like I said, he's vying for Defensive Player of the Year. Deshaun, like you said, he looks like his old self. Not much run game so far to replace Nick Chubb. But Amari Cooper got going. He had like 100. No, I know he had over 100 yards of receiving. Should have had more. They called him stepping out inside the 10, and he didn't. It was easy. The side judge was right there.
some of you missed it, but some of I just think that Cleveland, their defense is going to create a lot of havoc for Lamar Jackson. And keep in mind that run game for Baltimore is beat up. No J.K. Dobbins, he's out for the rest of the year. Justice Hill is battling an injury, and so all they got is Gus, and that's not much going on when you only have one running back in your stable. So I like Cleveland to cover the spread there and beat the Ravens and go 3-1.
Okay, I had that as one of my games as well, so I'll come up with the second one or third one here in a second. I like New England at Dallas, number one. This is an intriguing matchup for a couple of reasons. One, I mean, let's call it what it is. Dallas did not look good on Sunday against a very, hard scrabble Arizona team. Now, look, Arizona's giving people fits the first couple of weeks. That being said, you also had a Dallas team that was coming off, no Trayvon Diggs. But more importantly, they were missing 2 or 3 starting offensive linemen, which showed. Of course, Dak didn't look great, and of course, Brandon Cooks didn't look great either. So, look, we talked about being prisoners of the moment, earlier this week, and I'm just starting to wonder. And we're going to find out. Look, the thing you know about New England is this. All right, they. In week one, let's see who they lose to. Philadelphia. They lost to Philadelphia in week one. Then they lost to who the heck did they lose to in week 2? Dadgummit.
Arizona got. Let me see. They lost to the Giants. No, yeah, they lost to the Giants. They blew a 21-point.
I'm talking about who did New England lose to in week 2?
Oh, I'm sorry. New England lost to the Dolphins 24-17.
That's right.
In New England, that was their home opener when they retired.
TB12.
They faded him, and and then they. Although, if I remember correctly, the Dolphins were ahead by like 14 or 17 points, and then New England kind of made it a game in the second.
New England made a little bit of a comeback there towards the end, but it was one of those proverbial too little, too late, and it didn't feel. I mean, it was more like it didn't feel like they were. I mean, yeah, it was one of those. The game was not as close as the score would indicate. So you got a Dallas team coming off a big loss. You got New England who finally got a win. But the problem with New England I see is that, look, their defense is good, and I can see their defense giving Dallas fits. And Dallas is another one of those places. While, yes, I do know that their fans show up. I mean, Dallas fans, we know that about it. But, again, it's such a huge stadium that they do sell a lot of visiting tickets, right? We do know that New England fans travel very well. So It's going to be a very interesting environment from that standpoint. So I expect New England to show up and show out. My thing that worries me, though, about New England, because let's see, the spread in this game is that 7, right? So I can definitely see New England covering that spread. I really can. The thing about that just worries me a little bit is, again, I just don't know. You talked about Jacksonville not having playmakers. New England's in that same boat.
Sure.
Right? Like look, Ramondre Stevenson is a good, not great running back. He's the kind of guy that he benefits better when there's other pieces around so that you're not just focusing on him. I mean, he's a very capable running back. But Kendrick Bourne, Juju's been a disaster. So, it's just like you don't really have the pieces there. And, you're banking on what? Hunter Henry, for Christ's sake? Like, that's where we're at? Where Hunter Henry's the guy?
And Trent Brown is hurt. I mean, you can't really trust him, blocking the blind side of Mac Jones. And,
so that's what seems like this team, I real quick, but I feel like, Mac Jones, and I got to, me and Josh disagree about this, but I think Mac Jones can be a winning quarterback in the National Football League. I really do. I think he's got all the intangibles you want. Maybe he doesn't have the howitzer for the arm, but he can make all the throws, and he's a lot more mobile than people give him credit for. But there's just no pieces around him. So I could see Dallas winning this game on Sunday, but I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be one of the better games of the day. Yeah. The game that I think could end up being the game of the week, and of course we may be surprised, but it is a divisional matchup. Arguably the 2 hottest teams in football right now. 2 of the hottest teams in football. One for sure, the Dolphins at Buffalo.
Yep.
That's going to be a monster game.
That's going to be a monster.
And you know what? If Buffalo wins this game, especially, and look, they're gonna if they win, it means their defense played great, but more importantly, it means that Josh Allen wasn't reckless with the football. Yeah. And I think we get and look, I get it. It's we hyperanalyze, we over indulge, we overestimate. But I get it. He didn't look great in week 1. He's looked incredible the last 2 weeks. Now, again, you could argue they played the Raiders and the Commanders the last 2 weeks. Let's find out. Will the real Josh Allen please stand up on Sunday? And we're going to find out who that guy is Sunday when the Dolphins come to town. And then kind of my last game, so to speak, and this is kind of a toss-up of kind of meandering teams. Obviously, I'm going to be interested just from a local standpoint about Pittsburgh and the Texans. I'm anxious about that. But I'm going to give you just a couple games that it's not like I'm going to be locked into, but that I'm just curious about. Number 1, Atlanta and Jacksonville. And the reason why I'm interested in that is because of the Kyle Pitts situation. You and I have been saying, I've been saying for a couple of weeks now that the Chiefs need to kick the tires on a Kyle Pitts trade. Allegedly, somebody reached out to them about trading Kyle Pitts, and they said, LOL, not happening. Number 2, I'm with you on the Viking Carolina Panther thing. I could see Carolina winning that game because it's home. All right. Sure. And they didn't look bad with Andy Dalton at quarterback, right? Yeah. And dare I say, they actually looked better with Andy Dalton at quarterback than they did with Bryce Young.
Well, again, I mean, the veteran's always going to look better in a season than a rookie. I mean, we got to pump the brakes on these expectations for these rookies here. I mean, CJ Stroud, all those
CJ Stroud has looked like a legit NFL quarterback. Bryce Young is starting to look. I mean, look, the problem with Bryce Young is that he's not big.
He's small. He's
a little dude, and he looks like a little dude out there, right? Like I get everyone. Oh, but it was the SEC. I don't give a fuck about the SEC. Guess what? You know what the NFL doesn't have that the SEC does? Vanderbilt. Okay, Vanderbilt. Yeah. All right, fuck Vanderbilt. You know what else they got? Mizzou. Okay. All right. I got into a Twitter fight with some Mizzou clowns the other day.
I saw that. You kind of really reined that in.
I couldn't help myself. But the reason why I'm kind of keeping an eye on those games, number 1, if Pitts looks like shit, I would love for the Chiefs to kick the tires on him. And the reason why I'm keeping an eye on that Vikings game the same way you are is if the Vikings fall to 0-4, all right, would the Jets make a phone call about Kirk Cousins?
I don't
look. If you're 0-4,
I don't think the Vikings will take the call because I don't think Kirk Cousins is the problem. Their problem is their run defense is absolutely terrible. Their pass defense is worse. Kirk Cousins is not the problem.
It's not so much about him being the problem. It's about, okay, look, is he? If you're the Vikings, you ask yourself 2 things. 1, is he the long-term answer? And 2, if he's not, then you're ready to move on from him. And do I at least get some compensation for him out of the deal?
I don't know, man. I mean, I think considering how close they were last year and the eight come from behind wins and the fact that they were, I think, 11-0 in 1-score games. And granted, those things even out over the course of a couple of years. But you're not going to roll with Nick Mullins as if you trade Kirk Cousins, they'll burn that place down. I mean, especially with Justin Jefferson, and now
because look, think of it this way.
Now they got Cam Akers, right?
But if I told you, okay, let's play hypothetical here. Let's just say, all right, because if you're 0-4, I'm not saying you're done, but you ain't competing for a Super Bowl, okay? So if I told you I'm putting in Slapdick McSlapperson at quarterback, whoever the guy I don't even know who the fuck the Vikings backup quarterback is, the guy you just mentioned.
Nick Mullins. Yeah.
You're guaranteeing yourself a top 3 pick in the draft. Okay? You are guaranteed. This dude ain't gonna win games.
As a Raider fan, I don't give a shit where our first round pick is. But yeah, okay, I get it. But I mean,
but you're missing my point. Is that you've got 3 quarterbacks coming in this draft this next, whether it's Caleb Williams, the kid from North Carolina, or Shedeur Sanders. Okay. Yeah. Now all of a sudden, look, you mean to tell me I'm going to punt on Kirk Cousins, get some draft capital, and get my quarterback of the future next year? Could be a lot worse.
Yeah, but you're not a Vikings fan. They got to answer the Vikings fans as well as their season ticket.
You know what? What the fuck else are Viking fans gonna do in November? What are y'all gonna do? What Viking fans? You know what? Check out the show, okay?
Watch the stars, and fornicate. Play hockey and fornicate, just like.
Here's the thing: you're already 0-4. Like, what are you? You're gonna revolt? Revolt because I traded. I'm gonna look. I wish somebody would revolt because we traded Kirk Cousins. I want that guy on the show. Okay. If you're the guy that revolted because Kirk Cousins got traded, I want you on the show.
You know what? I actually got a couple of fans in my office, a couple of Viking fans in my office. They're not fanatics, but
you know what? Then tell them
they would agree with me that Kirk Cousins is not the answer. And also, again, the NFC North, you got the Bears. You got the Packers, who didn't really look good against the Saints. The only reason why they won was because Derek Carr got hurt, slammed his shoulder down.
Right.
And they put Jameis Winston, and he threw for barely 104 yards in the second half, and the first half, part of the first half and the second half. And so they blew a 17-0 lead.
Jameis is out here collecting checks, and I'm okay with that. All I'm saying is,
look, I get you, but anybody can get hot in December, and I just think that.
But here's the thing: get hot for what? Look, you ain't beating Philly. You ain't beating that. I mean, I doubt you would beat that. Look, here's the thing about Minnesota: if they go to 0-4, best case scenario is what you might, because you know what. It depends. Look, if Detroit wins,
you have to go 9, and you got to go 9-5 the rest of the way. And with that schedule, that's pretty hard.
No. Look, I like the Vikings. I'm just saying, I
don't play the AFC West, right? Yeah, sorry.
No, I'm just saying, like, if I was a Viking fan and you told me, look, we're punting and we're playing for a quarterback next year, I wouldn't like it. Because look, the competition, and if you told me I could get something I could get something for Kirk Cousins, because look, regardless of let's say the team rights the ship, let's say they end up with they go on a run down the stretch, and let's say they go 9-8 or 8-9 and wiggle their way in the playoffs, they ain't going to the Super Bowl. You've got Kirk Cousins as your quarterback. Kirk Cousins, look, I get it, the quarterback special endeared us all to him because Kirk Cousins, would I let him babysit my children? Would I name him the godfather of my son? Probably. Okay. You can't
get around the fact that he wears his wedding ring on the field.
Look, here's the deal.
You give a big fuck.
I don't care so much for guys that aren't my quarterback. I like Kirk Cousins as a player, but Kirk Cousins has shown time and time again, when you need him in the crunch, when you need him in the moments that matter most, my boy is nowhere to be found. And that's just and that's not, wedding ring or not. And again, that's something that's affected all guys. He's
been spoiled over the last 4 years of fitting.
But hell, I had to endure 30 years of, I endured 35 years of Tyler Thigpen, for Christ's sake. Look, I think about it this way. Exactly. Okay. Let's you know what? And you look at a guy like a Jimmy Garoppolo. Okay. Jimmy Garoppolo is a good NFL quarterback. Right? But there's certain things he does that when he can't move, he's done. He's done. Look, he already had a concussion. There's a good chance he may not even play on Sunday. And we're 4 weeks into the season, and Jimmy Garoppolo's already had a concussion, for crying out loud.
Right.
Like you knew going into this game in the season. You and I have talked about it ad nauseum. What's the over? I'm sure Vegas, I don't know if they did or not, but I'm sure they did. I'm sure there was props you could take on how many games he'd last this season.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
11.5, take the over under. I'll take
that was the question going in. Can he stay upright? And especially with that Swiss cheese of an offensive line guarding him, and so, but the mantra was, well, he's going to hand the ball off to Josh Jacobs. Well, Josh Jacobs didn't report, he spelled out. What's that?
Okay. You and I texted you this Sunday night. Why? And me, actually, you and I may have even talked on the phone about it. Please explain to me Josh Jacobs, how you come off a career year, the best year of your life running a football, and you decide the next season that you're going to change your number.
Stupid.
I just that makes I'm baffled by that. I'm baffled by that.
Maybe he's not superstitious but I don't like the whole thing anyway. I mean, these guys can change their number from one year to the next, can they? I mean, suppose he doesn't like.
The deal is you got to buy up the jerseys. You got to buy up the number of jerseys that were made with your previous number. I
hope so. But you know what? Anybody who buys a jersey, an authentic jersey for an NFL player that's active right now, is really taking a risk with their money. Why don't you buy a jersey for an old-time player? Now, there are some exceptions, right? You know, like the fitting, right?
Yeah.
Mahomes, he's going to be there for the next 10 years. But for the most part, if you're going to buy a Tom Brady jersey, you're safe. Hey, the two jerseys I got, Tim Brown and Kenny Stabler. That's it. They're Hall of Famers, but also they're former players. And they lasted with the Raiders, you know, for most of their career. But, I mean, I'm not buying a Josh Jacobs jersey. Hell, I'm not even going to buy a Hunter Renfrow jersey because I don't know if they're going to be there next year.
I don't know that Hunter Renfrow is even got I think they took his jersey back after Sunday. What happened to this guy? Who was it?
His protection plan.
Chris Collinsworth made a great point. He was like, this is a guy that was a big part of their offense the last 2 years and was absolutely nowhere to be found on Sunday night.
Well, why don't you go ahead and ask Josh McDaniels? Because he must have some type of hate for him because, you know, the guy had 100 catches 2 years ago, 103 catches 2 years ago. And now he's just a forgotten man. Now, granted, he suffered a concussion in the middle of last season.
Hadn't been the same since.
He's had 2 targets in 3 games.
Yeah.
2 or 3 games.
Jimmy J ain't feeling it. Real quick, word is out that Taylor Swift will be at the Jets-Chiefs game on Sunday night. Get ready. Yeah,
well, we waited. Well, we got until 7:53, 53 minutes past the start of the show, and thanks for mentioning that.
That's it.
I
did that for you.
Don't care.
No, okay? You don't.
I get it. Her tour is going to cost over $1 billion. I don't give a shit.
I'm mildly fascinated by it. Tomorrow night, Detroit, of course I am. Tomorrow night, Detroit at Green Bay. Who do you like in this game?
Oh, I like Detroit. I mean, really, their offensive line is solid. I mean, yeah. I love what Jared Goff is doing with the receivers. I mean, I'm hoping Amon-Ra Brown is fully healthy. Their defense, I mean, Aiden Hutchinson is a goddamn beast.
Freak show.
I mean, he's going to get Jordan Love. I'm telling you, yes, they came back and they beat the New Orleans Saints, but New Orleans had a hand in that. Jordan Love was very uneven in that week 2 affair, and they had a lot of pre-snap penalties. I think they had over 60 yards in penalties in the first half, and 45 of them were, and this was at home, you know. And he was, you know, he was just an up and down. I mean, he didn't really play that great. Granted, this is his first year as a starter, but he's been in the system. This is his 3rd year now, right? I mean, he was a 2020 draft pick, right, Freddie? I think so.
Who's that?
Jordan Love, you know, from Utah State, the quarterback for Green Bay. But even in the second half, it was more the same. Even in the second half, it was more the same. I mean, and again, Aaron Jones should be back finally. So no more A.J. Dillon. But I mean, last week it was same run for negative yards. Taylor with a tackle for a loss, you know, and then a false start, and then Jordan Love throws a pick. That was their first series, and it seemed like that's what it was all game long. It's just, but then all of a sudden they came back in the second half and won. So, but Detroit has got, I mean, they got the mojo going. I mean, you know, that week 1 victory against Kansas City really set them off. They should have won week 2 too. I don't know what happened there, but. I think Detroit will handily beat the Packers.
It's a bold take by you. All right, last thing, and we'll get you out of here with this, folks. Of course, we know Chiefs and Jets are on Sunday Night Football. Get ready for that. And, of course, obviously, we've got Detroit and Green Bay, and then we'll have one Monday night game next week.
Seattle. Lay the 9.5. Take the Chiefs. I mean,
no, you absolutely should. Last thing, give me your top 3 teams in the NFL right now.
Oh gosh. My top 3 teams in the NFL.
Top your teams right now.
I want to say it's really close, but the Niners and the Dolphins are 1A, 1B.
Okay. We'll 49ers 1, Dolphins 2, and who's your number 3?
Yeah. And number 3 is the Eagles. And I know, yes, they're all 3-0, but I mean, look at how strong they are on both sides of the ball. The Niners.
Who's your 4th team?
You're waiting for me to say the Chiefs. I want to see more offense out of the Chiefs. I want to see more of efficient offense. Right now, I mean, their schedule has been pretty easy. I mean, they're facing a really, really bad Jets team who can't figure out. I mean, shit. Even Joe Namath is calling for Zach Wilson's head. It's so I. I'm sorry. So who's my 4th team?
4th team.
It's a toss-up between the Chiefs and the Bills.
All right, we'll go with KC.
Okay.
All right. I went Miami, San Francisco, Philly, and Kansas City.
Of course you do.
So you and I are most in sync.
Look,
you know what? Guess what? One team has Pat Mahomes, the other team doesn't. Okay. I will say this last thing I'm going to say, and then we'll get the fuck out of here and get everybody back on their nights. And we want to appreciate everybody for tuning in. Make sure you guys.
My ice cream's getting warm.
I do want to see the Chiefs trade for a wide receiver. I do want to see the Chiefs trade for a wide receiver. I like this group. Don't get me wrong, but Kadarius Toney, I'm done with. Sky Moore, while I'm a fan of his, I like Justin Ross and I like Rashee Rice. Although I think Rashee Rice is going to be the best one out of the bunch. You still need a number 1 guy in the Chiefs. And I get it, I get it. Travis Kelce is the number 1, but I just think that this team, if you add a bona fide number 1 wide receiver to this offense, and suddenly, I'm not going to say we're the Miami Dolphins, but my God, this offense is going to blow up if you add a star wide receiver to this group. And I'm going to tell you one last guy to take a look at. And again, it could be, who knows, but D-Hop has done nothing in Tennessee. Nothing in Tennessee. Why he decided to go play for them is anybody's guess. But I'll tell you what, we know that there's interest between him and the Chiefs. A 3rd or 4th rounder could probably get the deal done. And
that's cheap.
That's it. Be sure to follow the Bitter Mike at the Bitter Mike on both X as well as on the IG. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. We've had a blast. I hope you guys have had one too. Like I said, be sure to give us a follow. And then, of course, we'll do a post-game show on Sunday night. So stick around for that. We're looking forward to it. We know you are too. For the one, the only Mike Babbo, I'm still that dude, Freddie D. H-Town, Kansas City, and all points in between. You know we love you.
Peace.
In stream.